Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something that, well, it promises summertime bliss, but really demands some serious prep work. Building a swimming pool. Think of this deep dive as maybe a shortcut, a way to understand what really matters before that first shovel even thinks about hitting the dirt.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit of homework now can save you a world of pain later.
Trust us, it really can.
Absolutely. I mean, putting in a pool, it's not just digging a hole and filling it with water, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge investment,
Huge.
both in, your money and your whole lifestyle. We're often talking a six-figure decision all in.
Exactly. And we all picture that perfect, poolside moment, the Instagram shot.
Of course.
But what we're really saying here is that strategic thinking, it needs to kick in way, way before you start dreaming about, specific tile colors or those fancy waterfalls.
That's the core of it. Our mission today really is to walk you through that crucial research phase.
We want to help you steer clear of the common pitfalls, the things that can turn that backyard dream into a really expensive nightmare.
Okay, let's get into it then. Why do so many people seem to just skip this? Skip the crucial groundwork. What's really going on there?
Well, I think it often just boils down to that initial rush of excitement,
Yeah.
People get swept up in the vision, the idea of having the pool, enjoying it. They want to jump straight to the fun stuff, picking the shape, the finishes.
The fun bits.
Exactly. They're led by emotion, picturing those sunny days, rather than, stepping back and thinking strategically about what is essentially a major construction project.
And that emotional rush, that's where things can really start to go sideways, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
What are some of the, real world negative consequences of not doing that upfront research?
Well, the financial hit can be massive, seriously. We're talking potentially, 60 grand down the drain if you find out halfway through that the design just won't work on your site.
Or worse, you hit major problems like really unstable soil nobody checked for.
Right.
Plus, rushing often means you don't vet your contractor properly. You might pick someone who cuts corners. And believe me, that will cost you more in the long run. It always does.
So it's about building a solid foundation, literally and figuratively. Okay, so if research is non-negotiable, what are the absolute must-do areas? What has to be investigated?
Okay, so there are several key categories. First up is site assessment. You absolutely have to get to know your physical space.
Yep.
Like, what's the actual usable area you have? Is the land sloped? That matters a lot. What's the soil like? Is it sandy, clay, rocky? And a really practical thing, how are they going to get construction equipment back there? Is there access?
That access point, yeah. That's something you might totally overlook, but it could be a deal breaker or at least a huge cost factor.
Exactly.
Okay, so site assessment first. What's next on the research list?
Next is really digging into budget expectations. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They underestimate the true cost.
Right. It's not just the sticker price of the pool itself.
Not at all. You absolutely must factor in all the ongoing stuff. Long-term maintenance, chemicals, cleaning services maybe, landscaping around the pool, that can be a big chunk. Fencing, which is usually required by law for safety.
Right, safety fencing.
And permit fees. Don't forget those. They can vary wildly depending on where you live.
Okay, so those ongoing costs, they can really sneak up on you if you're not prepared. It's not just buying the thing, it's owning the thing.
Precisely. It's the total cost of ownership.
So how does the way you plan to use the pool fit into this research?
Oh, that's crucial. That falls under what we call lifestyle fit. You need to think, okay, what am I really going to use this pool for?
Like, am I training for the Olympics or just having friends over?
Exactly. Are you planning serious lap swimming every morning? That implies length, right?
Yeah.
Or is it mainly for entertaining, maybe needing a larger shallow area, seating ledges?
Yeah.
Or kids? Huge consideration. Safety features, maybe a specific depth profile. These uses directly dictate the best shape, the depth, any extra features you add.
So you design for the primary use, not try to make it perfect for everything.
Yeah, trying to tick every single box often just leads to compromises everywhere and drives up the cost unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Focus on what matters most to you.
Makes sense. Fitness means length. Family means safety zones.
There you go.
Got it. What's the last big research bucket?
The last one, and it's a biggie, is contractor credentials. This is absolutely not the place to cut corners.
Okay.
You have got to rigorously vet anyone you're thinking of hiring. Check their license. Are they current? Make sure they have proper insurance liability and workers' comp. Super important.
Right.
Read client reviews, talk to past customers if you can, and definitely look at photos or even visit examples of pools they've actually built.
So No shortcuts on checking out the builder.
None. Taking shortcuts here is just asking for trouble. Poor quality of work, delays, disputes. It's just not worth the risk.
Okay, so summing up this part, the research is basically about making sure your dream pool idea lines up with reality.
Exactly.
The reality of your yard, your bank account, how you actually live, and importantly, who you trust to build it.
That's it perfectly. It's about setting realistic expectations and really understanding the whole commitment before you start.
Okay, so we know what areas need research. Now let's talk how. How does someone actually do this? What are the first practical steps?
Well, it often kicks off with an initial call, maybe a discovery call with a pool builder or designer.
Okay.
Or even better, a site visit where they actually come out to your property. That's invaluable.
Why is that site visit so important early on?
Because you can walk the property together. They can bring their expert eye to things you might not notice.
Like what specifically? What should you be looking at or discussing during that walk around?
Well, think about sun exposure. Where does the sun hit the yard and when? You probably want sun on the pool when you'll use it most. Look at how water naturally drains off your property. You don't want your pool becoming a catch basin for runoff.
Definitely not.
And again, that practical point. How will trucks and maybe even small excavators get back there without wrecking everything? You need to plan that access route.
Really practical stuff. Okay, what else happens in these early talks?
This is your chance to really talk about your why. Why do you want the pool? Is it mainly for fitness, socializing, just making the backyard look amazing? And then you can start exploring features. Do you dream of a spa attached?
Yeah.
Waterfalls, special lighting for evenings. Maybe you want smart controls for the pump and heater.
So it's kind of like a wish list session, but grounded in the site realities.
Exactly. And then comes the maybe less fun but absolutely critical part, talking budget.
Yes, the money talk.
Right. This is where budget mapping is so useful. A good professional will help you understand the real costs tied to the features you're excited about.
So they break it down like excavation costs this much,
Yeah.
fancy lighting adds this much.
Precisely. You might have a total number in mind, but seeing how it breaks down helps you make informed choices about what's truly important versus what's just a nice to have.
And before you even sketch out a design, there's that other layer of rules and regulations, right?
Oh, absolutely critical. You must investigate local zoning laws and permit requirements.
Before designing.
Yes, before. Every town or county has rules about setbacks, how far the pool needs to be from your property line, fences, maybe even your house.
Okay.
There are specific safety fencing codes almost everywhere, maybe rules about drainage or pool equipment location. Ignoring these up front, that leads to big delays, fines, potentially even having to tear out work. You have to check first.
Wow, okay. It really hammers home that putting in this time, doing this research up front, it seems like it saves way more time and money down the road.
Without a doubt. It prevents costly rework, stops those frustrating unexpected delays, and honestly saves a huge amount of stress.
Okay, so we know what to look into and how to start. Let's flip it. What are the classic mistakes people make when they don't do this homework properly? What pitfalls pop up again and again?
Well, a huge one, really significant, is ignoring the ground itself, the soil, and the drainage.
Right, the site assessment stuff.
Exactly. If you try to build on really expansive clay soil without the right engineering, or on a steep slope without proper retaining walls, you're just asking for major structural problems later.
Sounds expensive.
Incredibly expensive and disruptive to fix once the pool's in.
Okay, so ignoring the ground is mistake number one. What's another common one?
Assuming all pool builders are basically the same and just picking the cheapest quote.
Yeah, the lowest bidder trap.
Yeah, look, budget matters, of course it does. But just price shopping without digging into the builder's reputation, their experience, the quality of materials they use, that's often a path to regret.
You get what you pay for. Often.
Very often in construction. Compromised quality, things failing prematurely, endless headaches. It's usually not worth the upfront savings.
I can also imagine people getting totally fixated on a look, like a picture they saw, and forgetting about how they'll actually use the pool.
That's another classic. Designing before defining the use. You end up with something that looks maybe amazing in photos, but just doesn't work for your lifestyle.
Like that tiny, curvy pool when you really wanted to swim laps.
Exactly. If your main goal is exercise, a short, free-form pool, no matter how pretty, is going to be frustrating every single time you use it. Function has to follow form, or at least walk alongside it.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
And what's maybe the final big oversight you see when people haven't done their research?
Ignoring the ongoing costs. the lifetime costs of owning a pool.
We touched on this with the budget, but people really miss this.
Oh, frequently. They focus so hard on the upfront build price that they completely fail to budget for what it costs to run the pool week after week, year after year. Like heating the water, that can be a big energy cost, especially in cooler climates. Chemicals, regular cleaning, electricity for the pump, and eventually things wear out. The pool surface will need resurfacing down the line. That's a major expense.
So it's kind of like buying a really fancy sports car.
Without ever asking about the fuel economy, the insurance costs, or how much the special tires cost to replace.
That's a great analogy. Makes it really clear.
Yeah, you need to understand the long-term commitment financially and even time-wise for maintenance before you sign on the dotted line.
Okay, so research isn't just about the build, it's about the whole life cycle of the pool.
Precisely.
Let's make this super concrete now. Can you share a story, like a real-world example, where doing this kind of thorough research really paid off? Maybe saved a client from disaster or shifted the project for the better?
Oh, absolutely. I remember one client vividly. They came to us totally set on this beautiful, large, infinity edge pool. Their vision was very specific, positioned right near the back edge of their property for the view.
Sounds lovely.
It did. The renderings looked fantastic. But during our standard research, digging into property surveys, checking local council records, we found something critical.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. A major stormwater easement ran directly underneath the exact spot where they wanted to put this big, expensive pool.
And an easement means you can't build there.
Pretty much. It's land the authorities need access to for drainage, utilities, whatever. Building a permanent structure like a pool right over it, big no-no. Legally problematic and practically asking for trouble if they ever needed access.
Wow. So if they hadn't done that research...
Oh, it would have been a nightmare. They would have started digging, maybe even got pretty far along and then likely been forced to stop. Huge costs for rework, potential fines, massive delays. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars easily wasted.
Yikes. So what happened? How did the research change things?
Well, because we caught it early, right at the start, we could pivot. We sat down with the client, explained the situation, and worked with them to redesign. Instead of the big infinity pool in that spot, we ended up designing this really sleek, quite beautiful plunge pool in a different part of the yard.
A plunge pool?
Yeah, smally, more focused. It still gave them that lovely water feature, a place to cool off, captured the view they wanted, but crucially, it completely avoided the easement.
And they were happy with that.
They were thrilled in the end. They got a gorgeous pool that fit their property legally and functionally, and they avoided a massive potential headache and cost blowout. It's a perfect example of the power of that upfront research.
That really drives the point home.
Yeah.
Okay, so thinking about people going through this, who are the ones who nail this research phase? The winners, so to speak.
The winners, yeah. They tend to see the pool not just as a pool, but as part of their whole home, their whole lifestyle plan. It's integrated.
Right.
They're proactive right from the get-go. They ask tons of questions, good questions. They bring in professionals early, listen to the advice, and importantly, they stay flexible. They're open to adjusting their initial ideas based on what the research uncovers.
So they're collaborative, informed, and adaptable. Makes sense. What about the flip side? Who are the folks who tend to struggle? The ones who maybe lose out in this research phase?
Often it's the people who get totally fixated on one specific image. That Pinterest photo problem again.
The picture.
Yeah. They try to force that exact look onto their yard, regardless of whether it actually fits the space, the budget, or how they even live. They lack flexibility. They often haven't done enough digging themselves. They rely on assumptions. Oh, my neighbor's pool cost X, so mine will too, rather than getting real facts for their specific situation.
And that leads to...
It almost always leads to trouble. Unexpected delays when reality hits, frustrating and expensive change orders mid-project because the original plan wasn't feasible, and ultimately they often end up dissatisfied, even if they get a pool, because it wasn't what they thought it would be or it cost way more.
So it really boils down to being realistic and informed versus just running on emotion and a pretty picture.
That sums it up perfectly. Pragmatism over pure fantasy.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. Bringing everything together, what's the absolute core message you want listeners to walk away with from this deep dive on pool research?
Just the sheer absolute necessity of doing comprehensive research before you get caught up in the exciting bits like design and choosing tiles. Seriously, it is the foundation, Get that right, and the whole project is much more likely to be smooth and successful.
And if someone listening is right now thinking about a pool, what's the very first thing you'd tell them to do? The first actionable step?
Start asking better questions. Right now, adopt that proactive mindset. Don't just dream about the end result. Start questioning the process, the site, the costs. And remember that key takeaway. Don't just dive in. Do the research first.
Wise words. And speaking of diving deeper, on our next deep dive, we're going to unpack something just as critical: the scope of services in your pool contract.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Because what's listed in that quote, it might not be the whole story. So definitely tune in for that. It's crucial for understanding exactly what you're paying for.